Good morning. My name is Kenya McDuffie, Councilman for 5 and Chair of the Council's Committee on Business and Economic Development. Today is Monday, March 21st, 2022, and we are convening this hearing virtually via Zoom. It is being streamed live on YouTube, and the time is 9:10 a.m., and I'm calling to order this budget oversight hearing of the committee. Today marks the first of the committee's budget oversight hearings for fiscal year 2023 budget season. The district's past two budget cycles occurred in the shadow of a global pandemic that ravaged our nation and upended the lives of residents across the District of Columbia and businesses. In addition to the cost in life and health that we all have suffered, the COVID-19 pandemic also affected the local and national economy, impacting city revenues and household budgets alike. The collective trauma and harm caused by the pandemic cannot be understated and should not be forgotten. The pandemic also shed a bright light on the systemic racism and economic insecurity long present in our society and served as a catalyst to mobilize public demand for change. We all made a commitment to do better for each other and to allocate resources to support our most vulnerable residents, shuttered businesses, and displaced workers. And the federal government responded with unprecedented investments through the American Rescue Plan and CARES Act. As we look toward a brighter future, I'm determined to see it to it that we continue to make transformational investments in those communities, especially those that were underserved prior to the pandemic and suffered most throughout, and to build a stronger, more equitable city that works for all of us. The city's finances are in a good place this year as we begin to consider the fiscal year 2023 budget proposal. District revenues have recovered to pre-pandemic levels and is expected to grow throughout the financial plan. This is no small accomplishment. However, the OCFO's revenue estimates show that this recovery is not equitably distributed, with those at the top continuing to do well, while those who have suffered the most, both before and during the pandemic, continue to struggle. The fiscal year 2023 proposed budget includes $10.7 billion in local funds and $19.5 billion in gross funds. Today, I welcome your insights on how this committee and the council should invest these funds to best serve you, the residents and businesses that call the District of Columbia home. How can we ensure this budget provides meaningful program services and assistance that will enable you, your families, and your businesses to benefit from the economic recovery the city is experiencing? What additional resources are needed to continue to build an inclusive economy that works for everyone, not just the highest earners? I look forward to discussing with you all how we can use the budget process to build on the progress we've made to chip away at the district's racial wealth gap and to build a stronger, more economically inclusive city for all of us. Thank you for being here today. For today's budget oversight hearing, we're going to hear public witness testimony on all agencies under the committee's purview. Witnesses who have signed up to testify about several of the agencies, including the Department of Small Local Business Development, the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development, the Office of People's Counsel, the Department of Insurance, Securities, and Banking, the Office of the Chief Financial Officer, Advanced DC. As a reminder, this hearing is reserved for only public witnesses who each have 3 minutes to provide oral testimony. Witnesses are encouraged to provide their written testimony as well to make sure the committee's record is complete. Witnesses will be promoted to panelists when they are called on to speak, at which point they will be able to turn their cameras and microphones on when it's their time to speak. I ask that all participants please mute their microphones when they are not speaking. First, we're going to hear testimony on witnesses from the Department of Small Local Business Development, or Dslbd. The mission of that agency is to support the development, economic growth, and retention of the district's small and district-based businesses and to promote economic development throughout the district's commercial corridors. I'm going to give, staff has already promoted several of the witnesses for this agency. I want to just let folks know I have an event that I have to attend. And so we're going to recess at about 10:40 or so for me to get across town to participate and then return after about an hour or so. So I appreciate everybody being here this morning. I look forward to hearing your testimony. I will remind folks that they have 3 minutes and there's a timer that should appear on your screen if you're able to see it. If not, I'll remind you when your 3 minutes is up. And good morning to each of the witnesses who are here already. I'm going to start with Madeline Odenhall, who is Director of Operations at District Bridges. And good morning to you. Good to see you again. You can begin your testimony.
Good morning, Chairperson McDuffie and committee members. As Chairperson McDuffie said, my name is Madeline Odendahl, and I am the Director of Operations for District Bridges. Established in 2005, our mission is to enrich neighborhood vitality by bridging community engagement and economic development opportunities so individuals, businesses, and organizations can thrive together. We manage 6 of DC's 28 Main Street programs designated by the Department of Small and Local Business Development. Since 2016, when District Bridges was awarded our first Main Street grant, funding for these programs has remained stagnant at $150,080. This budget is then split into half administrative and half programmatic costs. Over the last 6 years, Dslbd has continued to add greater restrictions to the programmatic budget. And while I believe the intent was to get more money directly into the hands of small businesses, this approach fails to understand the nature of each corridor and the unique needs of small businesses. Further, it has diminished the ability of Main Street programs to leverage their strongest asset, broad-based community support and engagement, by stripping the voice of the community and businesses from the budgeting process. These added programmatic requirements have also not come with any additional investment into administrative support systems that would enable Main Streets to manage and report on these grants more efficiently. Additionally, the stagnant administrative funding means that staff salaries are capped, and the majority of Main Street directors lack basic benefits such as health and dental insurance or retirement options. This results in rapid turnover and burnout, leaving programs in a constant state of rebuilding, which damages the long-term impact of these programs. Looking forward to fiscal year 23, District Bridges would like to recommend the council seriously consider our proposed 3-tier funding structure for Main Street programs, which is outlined in the table included in my written testimony. The 3 tiers proposed are based on the size of each Main Street corridor, specifically the number of businesses each program supports. Tier 1 programs who have 100 or fewer businesses would receive $180,000. Tier 2, who have between 100 and 200 businesses, would receive $225,000. And Tier 3 programs who have over 200 businesses would receive $250,000. The 3 tiers would still follow the half administrative, half programmatic structure that currently exists, but this tiered structure would provide more equitable support to businesses and more administrative support to manage these programs and increase their sustainability, all while better recognizing the unique impact each Main Street program can have in their community. In 2016, several Main Streets worked with John Stover and Associates to perform a study measuring and verifying the economic impact of these programs. The study found that for every $1 the city puts into a Main Street, the return on investment is over $3. That would mean that for the total proposed Main Street budget, as detailed in my written testimony, the city would receive a return of almost $19 million. As our city continues to recover, that is an opportunity that should not be ignored. I want to thank this committee and all of the DC Council for continuing to fund these vital Main Street programs. Thank you for your support and your time, and I'm available to answer any questions.
And thank you for your testimony. I appreciate you sharing it. We're going to go next to Michelle Malasky. Good morning to you, and you can begin your testimony. Thanks for being here.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman McDuffie and the Committee on Business and Economic Development. I'm Michelle Malatsky, and I'm the Program Manager of the Logan Circle Main Street Program. Logan Circle Main Street was designated in 2019 and supports 180 small businesses and reaches over 17,000 residents in the Logan Circle neighborhood. And we're a program of District Bridges, a nonprofit founded in 2005. District Bridges' mission is to enrich neighborhood vitality by bridging community engagement and economic development opportunities so individuals, businesses, and organizations can thrive together. This past year, we have spent our Main Street grant funds from Dslbd on the following priorities. Small business grants, we have distributed $30,000 to 10 businesses. Streeteries, we've helped 27 restaurants renew and manage their streetery construction, heat, and tent permits. And we've provided technical assistance and grant application assistance. And so far this year, we've helped 102 businesses. Looking forward to fiscal year 23, I'm requesting the council increase its Main Street funding and allocate $225,000 to the Logan Circle Main Street, as the corridor has nearly 200 businesses. This additional investment would enable us to provide more grant funding to businesses emerging from the pandemic, broaden our community outreach efforts to increase membership and sponsorship funding, and improve and increase our streetscape and street services. I'd like to thank you for your continuing support of the Main Street programs. The Main Streets are more important than ever as our city continues to recover from the pandemic. Logan Circle has grown and thrived over the last 20 years, but it's important that we do not become victims of our own success. We do not want to be a neighborhood where only national chains can afford to pay rent. As you may know, some property owners are willing to let storefronts remain vacant and wait for the highest rent from national chains. There is a public cost for these vacancies, including lost sales tax and lost income tax. This year, I suggest that council investigate innovative solutions, such as using a TIF model and invest in incentives for landlords to rent to small business owners and level the playing field. In Logan Circle, we want to keep a diversity of neighborhood serving businesses and a diversity of business owners. With additional funding, Logan Circle Main Streets hopes to preserve our existing small businesses that contribute to the identity of our neighborhood and support our promising new businesses. Thank you for your support and your time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
And thank you so much for your testimony this morning. We're going to turn next to Cassandra Hetherington. Good morning to you, and you begin your testimony.
Great, thank you. Good morning, Chairperson McDuffie and committee members. My name is Cassandra Hetherington, and I am the program manager of the Cleveland Park Main Street program. Designated in 2019, CPMS supports approximately 70 small businesses and over 30,000 residents and is a program of District Bridges. Established in 2005, District Bridges' mission is to enrich neighborhood vitality by bridging community engagement, economic development opportunities, so individuals, businesses, and organizations can thrive together. Over the last year, we prioritized our Main Street grant funds from Dslbd to address the following issues. We distributed $40,000 in competitive grants to businesses to assist with equipment upgrades, repairs, and replacement. We hired an outside consultant to prepare businesses for the DDOT Streetscape and Drainage Project, which started this morning. We organized an outdoor winter market, which brought over 200 people to the corridor. Looking forward to fiscal year 23, I am requesting that the council adopt the tiered funding structure proposed by District Bridges, which scales funding based on the number of businesses in each corridor. Our proposed structure is included in my written testimony. Based on the tiered approach, CPMS would fall into Tier 1 with a funding allocation of $180,000. This additional investment would enable us to provide direct financial assistance to businesses to mitigate the likely loss of revenue due to the construction, pay musicians and artists to enhance the corridor during construction in an effort to draw customers into businesses, and design and purchase vinyl banners indicating CPMS is open for business during construction. I would like to thank this committee and the DC Council for continuing to fund these vital Main Street programs, which are more important than ever before as our city continues to recover. With this additional funding, we hope to be able to bolster the small businesses in Cleveland Park as they weather the next 3 years of construction. Cleveland Park is a tight-knit, stable community with businesses primarily owned by women and minorities. Many CPMS businesses have been passed down from one generation to the next, and their doors have been open for decades. Cleveland Park Main Street hopes to maintain these legacy businesses while remaining a welcoming community for new businesses to come and for all to thrive. Thank you for your support and your time. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I appreciate it. We're going to turn next to Letitia Atkins. And good morning. Good to see you. You can begin your testimony.
Good morning. Thank you so much. Good morning, Chairman McDuffie and members of the Committee on Business and Economic Development. My name is Letitia Atkins, and I am the director of the Pennsylvania Avenue East Main Street, a program located within the Marshall Heights Community Development Organization. I'm here today to urge the committee and the council as a whole to increase funding for the Dslbd Main Street program. The proposed FY23 budget reduces funding for Main Streets by $200,000, going from approximately $5 million to $4.8 million. At a minimum, increasing the Main Street allocation to its FY22 level would allow the important and necessary work undertaken during the height of the pandemic to continue. Located in Ward 7, PIMS delivers commercial revitalization services for businesses located along the Pennsylvania Avenue Southeast corridor from the John P. Sousa Bridge to Southern Avenue Southeast. The commercial quarter encompasses 46 businesses within a 10-block radius and is divided into 2 distinct retail typologies. Pennsylvania Avenue East is a highly accessible and affordable commercial quarter with high levels of vehicular traffic, modest rental rates, and multiple shopping centers with on-site parking. However, concerns such as lack of adequate parking, pedestrian safety, and poor transportation infrastructure pose a threat to the success of the corridor. Additionally, many of the corridor's small businesses face barriers to accessing essential resources. Long-standing issues such as lack of proper accounting, tech literacy, and the absence of back office support continue to limit access to grants and other financial assistance provided by the federal and city governments. PIMS provides critical support to these businesses and is often a lifeline to their continued survival. Increased funding will enable us to support businesses along the corridor as we have been doing since we were founded in 2020, and will provide for more and more targeted small business technical assistance. In addition, as we prepare for the proposed Minnesota Avenue, Pennsylvania Avenue intersection improvement project, stronger businesses will only add value to the redesigned intersection. While ultimately a long-term benefit, the current construction project threatens the short-term success of businesses in the immediate area due to the expected loss of foot traffic and other issues that will reduce revenue. Additional funding to PIMS will help mitigate the economic damage caused by the construction at this intersection and would help defray the cost to local businesses within a quarter mile to ensure that these businesses keep their doors open. On behalf of this essential program, I urge you to not only continue funding for the 28 Main Street programs across the district, but to increase funding for those areas serving the most in need. In closing, I want to thank you, Mayor Bowser, and the Council of the District of Columbia for your faith in our organization and our ability to make a difference along the Pennsylvania Avenue East corridor. Dslbd Director Christy Whitfield and her team are incredibly supportive of the work and diligently work to ensure that we keep our small business community successful and thriving. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. We appreciate it. I do not see Wendell Quan as a panelist yet, so I'm gonna go next to Amanda Monaco.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairperson McDuffie and committee members. My name is Amanda Monaco, and I'm the program manager of the Columbia Heights Mount Pleasant Main Street program. CHMPMS was designated in 2016 and supports approximately 263 small businesses. We're also a program of district bridges. Over the last year, we prioritized our Main Street grant funds from Dslbd to address the following issues. We supported 26 businesses with streetery, propane, and structure permits and long fence rentals. We supported over 20 businesses with facade improvement projects, including takeout windows, lighting, and security improvements. And we connected businesses with DC Bar Pro Bono Center for legal support negotiating with landlords concerning eviction threats. We also led efforts to address safety and health issues in the Civic Plaza, which has now led to a fully funded program addressing community needs in the plaza to create a safer and more inclusive atmosphere in the plaza. Looking forward to fiscal year 23, I'm requesting that the council allocate $250,000 for CHMPMS based upon District Bridge's proposed 3-tiered funding structure, which Madeline mentioned in her testimony and is included in my written testimony. CHMPMS would fall into Tier 3. This additional investment would enable us to provide increased financial and technical support to businesses, support preventing the displacement of existing businesses, particularly the small immigrant-owned businesses and business owners of color who make Columbia Heights and Mount Pleasant so vibrant. And we could grow our activations and programming in the Civic Plaza and throughout both corridors to stabilize support for local businesses as our communities emerge from the pandemic. I thank the committee and the DC Council for continuing to fund these vital Main Street programs. As our city emerges from the pandemic, we have the opportunity to reevaluate the way we allocate dollars. We ask that the council use its funding to strengthen assistance for business owners, particularly those who come from less privileged backgrounds. Columbia Heights and Mount Pleasant business owners come from a wide variety of races, nationalities, income levels, and ages, and this local business diversity is the bedrock of our community. We ask the council to consider the tiered funding structure for Main Streets so that we may ensure that resources are allocated equitably and support strong, diverse Main Street programs here in DC. Thank you for your support and your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
And thank you so much for your testimony. We're going to turn next to Alexander Padro. Always great to see you. You in your testimony.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee and committee staff. I'm Alexander M. Padro, Executive Director of Shaw Main Street since 2004 and a former 10-term ANC Commissioner representing Central Shaw. Shaw Main Street is grateful that the Bowser administration appreciates the crucial role the DC Main Streets program is playing and will continue to play in supporting our city's small businesses during the intense stresses that the COVID-19 crisis imposed on almost every independent business in our neighborhoods. At least 26 Shaw businesses have closed permanently since the onset of the pandemic, and many more may follow in its aftermath due to financial damage and societal changes resulting from the virus. The FY23 DC Main Street's budget is fairly flat compared to the FY22 budget. While sustained funding is appreciated, this does not account for the cost of living increases for the clean and safe team members across the city, nor increased operating costs for clean teams and DC Main Street's programs. The clean team grants that are the principal funding source for clean and safe teams increased from $117,000 to just over $122,000 in FY22 after having been frozen at $117,000 for a number of years. The combination of mandatory annual living wage increases and steady increases in the cost of supplies and equipment, and now the cost of gasoline and the rate of inflation, threaten the reduction of services provided by these teams. The living wage alone has increased by $1 per hour in recent years. The commitment to paying a living wage is important to every Main Street and our service providers, but unless the overall clean team budget and the individual grants are increased, this will be an unfunded mandate. The annual grants should be increased to at least $135,000 for FY23. The FY23 Clean Team budget also does not provide for the expansion of services anywhere in the city. In order to be able to serve areas in Shaw Main Street's service area, for example, that are currently not provided clean and safe services, additional funding needs to be made available so that the Clean Team service boundaries can be expanded to match the Main Street boundaries. Or to Councilmember Pinto asked Mayor Bowser includes expansion of the Shaw Clean Team to 11th Street in the FY23 budget, but this request is not reflected in the mayor's budget submission. Another issue of concern is the $25,000 that each DC Main Street's program must spend on direct grants to businesses. These dollars have been shifted from programmatic activities that supported multiple businesses to direct grants to specific businesses. While that helps the handful of businesses that receive the grants, Shaw Main Street serves over 320 businesses, the vast majority of which are deprived of the services they would normally receive using that funding. Hopefully, the FY23 grant agreement will remove the requirement for direct grants or provide additional funds that can be used to benefit the majority of our businesses. The FY23 budget also does not propose any increase in the funding received by East DC Main Street's program despite rising operating costs. Lastly, as some of the more mature DC Main Street programs have seen the number of businesses in their corridors grow, funding has not increased to be able to provide the full range of services that businesses expect. It is not reasonable to continue to provide even funding to all DC Main Street programs, irrespective of the size of their service areas and the number of businesses they serve. A mature program like Shaw, with over 300 businesses, should not be funded at the same level as newer programs or one that has a fraction of the number of businesses relying on its services.
Your time has expired, Ms. Padro.
I'm available to answer any questions you may have for me now or after the hearing.
Thank you so much. We're going to turn next to William McLeod. I don't see him present, so we're going to go next to Rachel Shank. And good morning to you. You want to thank you for being here. You can begin your testimony.
Thank you. Good morning, Councilmember McDuffie, the committee, and members of the public. My name is Rachel Shank. I'm the Executive Director of Georgetown Main Street and have been since April 2019. The Georgetown Main Street corridor stretches from K Street to Whitehaven along Wisconsin Avenue Northwest and half a block east and west. Georgetown Main Street supports more than 200 businesses across a mile of our commercial district. Close to 60% of our businesses are either women, immigrant, or minority-owned businesses. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the council for your support of the Main Street programs and small businesses this past year. I just have some very brief comments. Last year, the DC Council approved an extension of the Glover Park Clean Team, which added a 1-year allocation of $73,000 to allow the Clean Team to support the 17 and 1800 blocks of Wisconsin Avenue. I haven't seen that included in the budget, so I'm just requesting that that becomes an annual allocation so that we can continue to support those 2 blocks and so that our clean teams can continue to keep on the staff that they've brought on, which has been about 2 new staff, and brought on someone to manage them full time. I also reflect the sentiments of my colleagues in the other Main Street programs. The Main Streets really provide a high touch point and personalized support to their corridors. And during these times, the small businesses need as much help as possible. As my colleague Michelle Malotsky said in Logan Circle, rent prices in Georgetown are incredibly challenging and across the city, and any opportunity that we can make rents affordable or possible for small businesses to compete with the larger businesses would be very welcomed. So thank you very much for your time. And I'd like to also thank the Main Streets Clean, which has grown, it seems, in fiscal year 2021. And that has been really great for capacity. We feel, or I personally feel, more supported by the team thanks to their additional staff. Thanks for your time.
And thank you. We're gonna go next to Yvette Banfield. And good morning to you. You can begin your testimony. Thanks for being here.
Yes, good morning, Councilmember McDuffie and members of the committee. I'm Yvette Banfield, the Vice President of Economic Development Policy at the Coalition for Nonprofit Housing and Economic Development. CNHED commends Councilmember McDuffie and the committee, members of the committee, for the continuous effort to ensure that the district's small business community and its ecosystem is more inclusive and equitable. We also want to acknowledge Mayor Bowser for her catalytic investments reflected in the FY23 budget to support small businesses. For the district's FY2023 budget, CNHED is asking the Committee on Business and Economic Development and the Council to make investments in 3 programmatic areas: contracting and procurement, neighborhood commercial corridors, and access to capital for small businesses. CNHED's budget aligns with the district's commitment to preserve, sustain, strengthen, and grow the our small businesses, especially Black and Brown businesses and the institutions that support them as they continue to rebound from COVID. CNHED is asking Council to commit $150,000 to the relaunch of the district's Mentor Protege program. The program provides technical and management assistance to help eligible SBEs and disadvantaged business enterprises to compete for large-scale contracting projects. The Mentor Protege program will help establish links between growing SBEs and DBEs with well-established, larger, successful prime businesses. CNHED is also looking for Council to invest $5.1 million for the Main Streets program. The district's Main Street program supports the operation and programming of 28 corridor organizations. The frontline organizations are vital resource to brick and mortar businesses and serve as a liaison to the district. We want to note that the increasing administrative costs in operating this program is an impediment for many of the main streets. And we also want to ask Council to support to commit $6.7 million for the Clean Teens programs in FY 2023. And we support the district's robust retail and Dream Grants, a micro program for small businesses in Ward 7 and 8. In closing, we urge Council to support CNHED's budget ask to make further investments towards the recovery and rebuilding of the small business community and its ecosystem. And we thank you for this opportunity to testify.
And thank you for your testimony. We're going to turn next, certainly not least, to Anwar Salim, final witness for this panel. Then I have some questions for you all. Good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman McDuffie. My name is Anwar Salim. I'm the Executive Director of H3 Main Street. Perception, insight, foresight, advocacy, and consistency were the main ingredients needed towards changing and developing this thriving Main Street district. We have proven that we could get the job done with many naysayers in tow with a suitable model and support. However, with much of our success, we still have needed improvements in addition to managing the achievements of H Street Corridor and somewhat mirroring our successful efforts along Blankenburg Road and Benning Road. During the past 2 years, we worked without much rest. And as a result, I believe based on percentages, H Street has the fewest businesses to close and the most significant gains during the pandemic. Moreover, our success over the years are well documented along the corridors and through testimony during previous hearings. Some of the council members haven't grasped or questioned over the years of testimony the reasons for our expanding our service area to 2 additional corridors, Blankenburg Road and Benning Road, without funding. Unfortunately, the promise of a supplemental funding by a previous director never materialized. As a result, we have over 400 businesses to support in over 4 miles of the service area located along the boundary lines of Ward 5, 6, and 7. H Street, Blankenburg Road, and Benning Road could become one of the strongest neighborhoods tri-area in the city with all the adjacent ward council members of support. I want to applaud Chairman McDuffie, who has supported our efforts in Ward 5. Our current allocation of $150,000 was initially for the service and support of H Street businesses. We continue to support the businesses with our expanded service area without additional or continuous funding source. Therefore, we ask that this council and Dslbd allocate us a fair share of the following in the 2023 budget: $155,000 for H Street, $75,000 for Blankenburg Road, $75,000 for Benning Road, $50,000 for the upkeep of the Starburst Plaza, and include the cost of living increase for the clean teams. However, we understand that this is not the time to do less, but to do more. Therefore, we would like to continue providing services that would allow us to strengthen our small businesses and surrounding amenities within our service area. These efforts will support and complement the growth and success of the area. We have in our eyesight, and also working to realize the success of Hackett Jamal development, supporting the strengthening of River Terrace Shopping Center, better use of Kingdom Park, Spingarn High School project, Starburst Plaza, Langston Golf Course, scatter sites along Blankenburg Road and Benning Road, and affordable housing. I'm confident that we are funded and supported at a responsible level, and the city agencies are open to creativity. We can help bring back our corridors quicker and better. Therefore, we are requesting funds to service the businesses in our expanded service area of Blankenburg and Benning Road, provide a cost of living increase for the clean team and the upkeep of the Starburst. Thank you, Councilman McDuffie, your team, the DC City Council, Mayor Bowles and her team, Christy Whitfield and her team members at Dslbd for an outstanding job and continued support provided to our Main Street programs.
And thank you for your testimony. I want to thank each of the witnesses for their testimony. Dslbd. I also want to thank you all for your work. I think it's primarily Main Street affiliated witnesses this morning, and I really appreciate everything that you all do to support all businesses along our Main Street corridors. Now, I want to ask, I guess I'll start it off with the folks with District Bridges about the tiered system that you all recommended. If folks can mute themselves, and or if you don't mind muting yourself and just let you answer. The tiered system in a nutshell, brief summary of what it is. I do have testimony from, I think, most of you who provided it, and anybody who hasn't provided their written testimony, I would highly encourage you to do so. It's really helpful for us to complete the record. So if somebody could, from the Main Street, could just summarize briefly the tiered system.
Absolutely, I can do that. So we're proposing 3 tiers based on the number of businesses that each program supports. So tier 1 for programs who have 100 or fewer businesses would receive 180. Tier 2 programs who have between 100 and 200 businesses would receive 225. And tier 3 programs who have over 200 businesses would receive 250. The tier structure that we outline also echoes what some of our other colleagues, specifically Alex Padro had stated around small business assistance, rather than specifically looking at small business grants, which, as Alex mentioned, is often not the most equitable way to get funding out the door.
Well, you anticipated my next question because I heard the word equity used a number of times, and I don't think simply giving everybody the same amount of grants is an equitable system. But similarly, I guess my question would be, and Alex and or anybody else, feel free to jump in. Is giving Main Street corridors the same amount based on the tiered system equitable, given the makeup and the historic challenges with certain corridors versus others, right? Increased density would equate to more money, but I don't know if it addresses some of the underlying issues with certain Pennsylvania Avenue, for example, or Anacostia as another example. How would you all address some of the historic challenges that they face? And feel free to say, maybe there's some other agencies that are doing work, because I know DMPED has a myriad of programs, and I've worked with them directly, whether it's the $100 million business grants or others where they reserve a portion to make sure that they're getting it to those businesses in wards 5, 7, and 8 that historically either have not participated in those types of programs for whatever reason, but to make sure that we are addressing some of the equity issues that inevitably exist throughout these corridors. So how would you all respond to that?
So the tiered program would be a step in the right direction because organizations that are taking equity seriously, like Shaw Main Streets, with our 60 plus legacy businesses, mostly owned by people of color, will naturally devote additional resources from the further funding to address those equity issues. One of the biggest challenges that we've had in recent years has been that requirement to spend $25,000 and until this year, $30,000 on direct grants, which causes a very small blip in terms of revenue and support for a handful of businesses, but leaves the vast majority of the businesses that we serve bereft. So yes, the tiered system would be equitable in terms of scale, but certainly there could be other considerations for the types of businesses that we serve, demographically and in terms of longevity.
Yeah, I would also just add that I think this is where the small business ecosystem really comes into play. Main Streets do not claim to be the end all be all for small business development. We work in partnership with many other agencies. And I think one of the things that we're noting is that we're letting the pursuit of perfection get in the way of progress. There has been no increase in Main Street funding in 6 years. That's kind of unacceptable for the amazing work that these programs do. And there are lots of complexities around all of these issues that we would love to be able to consider, but we frankly don't have the capacity because we are trying to manage all these other pieces on the same amount of funding as we had in 2016. So not having an increase only furthers the problem, especially for those smaller programs who have more complex issues. They're just trying to make payroll. I think gentrification would be one of the factors that we would want to consider measuring in an accurate way, but we need more data to be able to track that, which means we need the capacity to be able to track it, which means that these programs need support. So I think once we have the financial capacity to start addressing those issues, we would be able to unify more and offer more data to the council. And District Bridges can offer that amongst our programs. But again, when you're looking at the 28 programs as a whole, many of them do not have the capacity to provide that kind of data.
Right, I appreciate that.
I believe that the tier system can't work, but the other agencies have to be a partner in the success of the Main Street programs. And you look at the Office of Planning, you look at DMPED, look at DOES, look at Office of Humanities. For 8th Street to really succeed, all these programs really participated and have to continue to participate with the Main Street programs. The Main Street programs serve as the basic foundation of the success for these quarters. But if the other agencies really don't work synergistically and have an input in it, we're not going to have so much success. We all have to work together in this city. The other agencies have other resources that Main Streets do not have. and we have to use those resources to assure the successes of these corridors.
Well, I agree wholeheartedly with that. So I preface my question with the fact that Main Streets is by no means, or should it be, by any means, a panacea for the challenges facing those small businesses along the Main Streets corridor. But I appreciate the work that you all are doing, and I recognize the requests have been pretty consistent in terms of increase in funding. And so one of my questions is, have you all vetted your proposal with Dslbd? And if so, have you gotten any feedback about it from them?
So we did bring this to their attention multiple times over the last 2 to 3 years. And the overarching statement has been, be grateful what you receive now.
Okay. All right. I want to ask, Yvette Banfield, and given the resources and the knowledge and experience at CNHED, have you all had a chance to look at that proposal, the tiered system? If not, are you all willing to maybe take a look at it and give some feedback on it?
Sure, definitely. I have seen it, and I would like to give additional feedback. I do think that there needs to be a criteria based on the issues that you raised around being inclusive and equitable. I think there are different challenges that each corridor faces. We have language barriers, you have legacy issues, you've got density issues. It's a complex, there are complex dynamics that are all interplayed. I also think to the point that others have addressed, the issues around the ecosystem. Our commercial corridors have grown, they're bustling at the seams. We have new corridors in the district. We need to really marshal our efforts to figure out how do we look at the ecosystem around commercial corridors. You have all of these various programs that exist that do not necessarily collaborate or are aligned in a way that supports the organizations on the corridors and the businesses. And so we would encourage council maybe to really convene a roundtable just to look at the issues impacting our commercial corridors and really talk about the Great Streets and the SBTA program, because all of these programs are operating in isolation in silos. And until we think about a more cohesive, comprehensive strategy, we will be always faced with these issues and we will not be able to make strategic, informed decisions about our commercial corridors.
So that's a great point. Can I ask this question in response to that? Can we do both in this budget cycle? I think what you suggested is a more comprehensive, longer term sort of analysis and process, right? Maybe there's, with the support of my colleagues in the committee, could be, and more feedback from you all, money in the budget to do that sort of review.
We'd love it.
On the other hand, I think it would be great, and I don't want to get out ahead of myself, but I think it's necessary. And I think there's probably consensus in this panel and with the number of folks who aren't on this panel who do the work that is necessary. Hopefully Dslbd would agree with it. Now make sure staff will make a note now that I asked that question when we have their oversight. Also address some of the short-term issues in this budget around funding, because what I want to also recognize, and I want to ask real quick before I'll make a quick point, but then I want to ask Letitia Atkins how many businesses they have along the Pennsylvania Avenue corridor. I know Wendell Quan is not here, but I'd be interested in how many businesses Congress Heights has, because the tier system addresses, sort of the point in time where we are today, the number of businesses on corridors. What it doesn't speak to is sort of what doesn't exist on some of these corridors that should exist, right? And maybe that's where DMPIC comes in with other programs, Great Streets and other programs that already exist. Maybe that's, some of the work that CNHED is doing with the Anchor Project. I don't know. But I also want to recognize, because Alex Padro made the point, and I know there are others on this call who would agree, maybe Rachel Shank and Georgetown. There's some minority-owned businesses that have been around for a while, legacy-type businesses that don't always get included in the discussions around, small businesses deserving and needing of support. We focus on 5, 7, and 8. And I'm an advocate on focusing on those areas because I think geographically they have communities that have largely been, in some points in history, left out of these types of conversations or investments. And so they don't have the sorts of businesses that potentially they could have. And so I want to make sure we are thinking about that point as well. But if you could, Letitia Atkins, how many businesses do you all have on Pennsylvania Avenue?
We currently have 46 businesses. And what I wanted to also share, while I do believe the tier system could essentially work, again, when you think through the lens, when you look at it through the lens of equity, even though we have 46 businesses, these businesses are some of those legacy businesses that have for years and years not been able to tap into some of these resources that you're speaking about. And so it's vital that we look to support those communities that have much, a greater need. And so we don't want to get left out with a lower amount of funding because there is a greater need to assist some of these businesses. So we just want to caution it looking at a tier system that we definitely take into consideration what the need is for these businesses along each corridor.
I appreciate the point. And I think Michelle Malatsky had her hand up, and now did we lose her?
Oh, no,
right there. Okay.
I lowered it. I was going to make it similar.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Please.
I was going to make a similar kind of point. When you mentioned earlier about other programs like DMPED, there have been some wonderful grant opportunities this year to help businesses out of the pandemic, but the less sophisticated businesses are not able to access that kind of money because they don't have the, a profit and loss statements by month for 3 years. And so that would be another way to look at how to make it more equitable, to be able to provide those kind of services to help raise up those kind of businesses that are a little more back of the envelope.
Well, that is exactly the type of thing that we've asked DMPED and Dslbd to do. And to their credit, there has been some of that work being done. I think that's where the small business technical assistance also comes in. We've worked with some of the CDFIs. One of the things that was a big deal to me on the federal level was the amount of funding going to these traditional financial institutions that weren't going to the CDFIs and the MDIs that work with a lot of the small minority-owned businesses. And when the funds were given to them, did they have the capacity to be able to provide the TA, the technical assistance, to an outreach to communities to invite some of these legacy businesses who don't always depend on government assistance, but could benefit from it, to make sure that they were being included in consideration and being proactive and reaching out to them and trying to assess their needs and see if we can get them to apply the support they needed to come up with all the documents, right? Because once you've done it, there's sort of a model for how to compete for those grants. But if you've never done it before, or you had a horrible experience trying to do it, or maybe you owe a few $100s in clean hands, right, and some sales taxes or something, then it presents a barrier that we should not allow to stand without some effort by government to remove those barriers so the programs are more inclusive. I think everybody benefits when we do that, actually. I'm going to turn to Madeline Odendahl for one final comment before we go to the next panel.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify around the tiered system. We are not advocating that programs receive less than they are receiving now based on their size. The tier structure actually would put an increase even for businesses who have less than 100. I think the issue that we're seeing, our Lower Georgia Avenue corridor, our H Street corridor, the Shaw Main Street, these are programs with over 200 businesses. I know for Lower Georgia Avenue, over 60% are minority or immigrant owned, and we have the same amount of money for the 42 businesses that are in Pennsylvania Avenue East. So we're saying right off the bat, we're dealing with inequity that we can address. This is what we can address, is the number of businesses. And then I think around the equity issue, it's again what Yvette was saying about the ecosystem development. There are lots of programs that the city is investing in, specifically focused on wards 5, 7, and 8. So how are we helping our Main Street programs that are in those wards work with the resources that are there? Because the Main Street approach is what really can make those programs work. Talking about the DMPED grants, talking about all those things, because the Main Street program is relationship based, we are able to help those businesses in a way that DMPED and Dslbd don't have the capacity to do. We have that trust and relationship. So I just wanted to clarify that we are not advocating that any Main Street get less funding that they currently have. It's an increase across the board as a start so that we have the capacity to begin addressing the other issues at play.
Well, I think this is a great testimony. I like to be able to do some follow-up with you all, and maybe not as large a panel as we have today, but obviously folks who want to provide some input that will be helpful, both on the post-tiered system and to think about maybe some considerations that would strengthen, if not that proposal, a similar proposal to address, I think, the baseline issues of the need for additional funding. But then there's also what Yvette Banfield raised, which I agree is necessary, which is that sort of longer, more comprehensive review of these programs and the ecosystem to try to make sure that we are addressing that thoughtfully as well. And I think we can do both in the time that we have before we mark up budgets. Maybe that's a little bit ambitious. Maybe my staff is cringing as I say this, but I'm always a glass half full kind of person. I'm optimistic about these things, and I appreciate all the efforts that you all have provided, and I want to make sure you all get the support you need. So thank you. We're going to turn, we're going to turn next to the witnesses for the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development. Give staff an opportunity to transition some of those witnesses on. And while they do that, I'll say that the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development, or DMPED, its mission is to support the mayor in developing and executing the district's economic development vision by setting development priorities and policies, coordinating how the district markets itself to job creators, and leading district development, attraction, and retention efforts. Obviously, DMPED has played and will continue to play a crucial role in helping steer the district through the pandemic-induced recession and into economic recovery. Just a reminder to witnesses to mute themselves when they aren't speaking. I see Yvette Banfield is still with us. She's the first witness on this panel. So I'm going to start with you, even though I know some of the witnesses are still being transitioned as panelists. We want to keep things moving. Yvette Banfield, good morning again. And you can begin.
Yes, good morning again, Councilmember McDuffie and members of the committee. I'm Yvette Banfield, Vice President of Economic Development Policy at CNHED, the Coalition for Economic Policy and Nonprofit Housing and Economic Development. For the district's FY23 budget, CNHED is asking the committee to make investments in 3 programmatic areas: contracting, procurement, neighborhood commercial corridors, and access to capital for small businesses. CNHED's budget ask aligns with the district's commitment to preserve, sustain, strengthen, and grow the our small businesses, especially Black and Brown businesses, and the institutions that support them as they continue to rebound from COVID. CNHED supports the mayor's FY 2023 budget request for $500,000 for minority supplier efforts with large institutional employers. The committee has allocated money for this previously, which has supported CNHED's DCAP program, a collaborative of anchor institutions and utility companies advancing inclusive contracting and procurement with minority-owned business enterprises, also known as MBEs, in the district. DCAP has helped the original 4 participating institutions increase their minority business procurement from $5 million to almost $550 million over the last 2 years. CNHED has also expanded the anchor members currently involved in DCAP.
Yeah, Coach, but you know I'm doing a panel this morning. Can you hear me?
They include Georgetown University.
Yes, Ms. Hammond, we can actually hear you. So if you can, make sure everybody is muted. I appreciate it. Thanks. I'm sorry about that, Ms. Banfield.
No problem. Georgetown University, University District of Columbia, the Children's National Health System, Kaiser Permanente Mid-Atlantic, Sibley Memorial Hospital, and Bridgepoint Healthcare, with more institutions to join in the future. We are pleased that the mayor has included this in her budget. CNHED also requests that council commit $20 million in the FY23 budget to support the district's commercial acquisition fund. As you stated, Councilmember McDuffie, this fund helps socially disadvantaged small business owners purchase their real estate, addressing longstanding access to capital challenges and helping combat commercial displacement across the district. Confident that the small businesses will rebound from the pandemic, CNHED views the Great Streets Initiative and Neighborhood Prosperity Fund as a vital tool in recovering our neighborhood commercial corridors. The value add of these programs to small businesses in the district is why CNHED requests council to allocate in the FY23 budget $8 million to increase funding for this reimbursable grant program and the Neighborhood Prosperity Fund. And then lastly, CNHED requests council to commit $6 million in the CDFI and MDI fund to secure funding for community development, financial institutions, and minority deposit institutions that provide critical access to capital to small businesses, especially entrepreneurs of color. The fund supports institutions, loan capital equity, and their loan loss pool and guaranteed pool. In closing, we urge council to support CNHED's budget as we make further investments towards the recovery and rebuilding of the small business community and its ecosystem. CNHED looks forward to working closely with council and the district to improve the environment and increase access to opportunity for minority-owned businesses. Thank you for this opportunity to testify.
And thank you for your testimony. I want to turn next to Melody Webb. It's good to see. I know there's several. So you probably just have to make sure the people who are testifying identify themselves so we can make sure the record is clear about that. But good morning to you and thanks for being here.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'm the Executive Director of Mothers Outreach Network. I'm co-lead of the Guaranteed Income Coalition, a native Washingtonian and Ward 6 resident. Through law and organizing, we strive for racial economic security for moms whose families are involved with the Child and Family Services Agency. Our coalition's mission is to create a permanent guaranteed income program of unconditional cash payments that will bring every DC resident above an income floor, which should be at least the federal poverty line. Available social safety net benefits leave too many Washingtonians in deep poverty. Thank you for funding guaranteed income in fiscal year 2022. Our ask is twofold. We seek a fund of $13.5 million to pay $500 per month to 750 of our neighbors for 3 years, a program that's transparent with 5 to 10 participating organizations serving populations who face diverse social and economic circumstances to elucidate best strategies to address poverty. Second, we ask for waivers of statutory measures to exempt guaranteed income pilot payments as income for benefits like SNAP, TANF, Medicaid, and housing subsidies. But in the interim, we know that's difficult. We seek a hold harmless fund of $6.75 million to support families whose safety net benefits may be reduced or lost because of the extra income received through a 3-year guaranteed income pilot. To end, I'm now honored to read the story of a mom who's a member of this coalition and couldn't be here today. She's a single mother born and raised in Washington, D.C., has 3 children, aged 21, 11, and 10. Like her children do, she attended DC public schools. She lives in Ward 6. All her prior work history is in DC, but she has been unemployed for 6 years. Guaranteed income is important to her because she wants mothers like herself to be able to give their kids a better life. There's a lot she wants to do for her kids, but there are financial limitations. When she grew up, there was so much for kids to do. Her mother didn't have to worry about them having things to do because churches were open and games are available. Guaranteed income should be available to the families who need it, she believes. Her current benefits support her family by making sure her kids eat. This extra funding would support her family because she'd be able to take her kids out and let them see more of the world like museums. She currently takes them out to the park to enjoy the fresh air because that's free. Extra income would be a great help. The guaranteed income program will help her, especially if the city does not take away the benefits she already receives. To quote her, the $6.5 million Hold Harmless Fund is essential. When you get extra funding, the city finds a way to take it back. You can't get a break in public housing. You have so many worries. You get a little extra income and are happy, but impacts your other benefits. She always reports extra income because she doesn't want to be in any trouble with her benefits or children's benefits. But anytime extra benefits are given, the city takes away more. I hope the Hold Harmless Fund will prevent this from happening. Thank you. And I'm available for any questions you may have.
And thank you for your testimony. Then turn next to Maria Jackson, who's with the Mothers Outreach Network. And as well, I'm just assuming that some of the people who appear, okay, there it is.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we're getting some feedback. I'm not sure if there's someone who may also have a computer or some other device close by, but we can hear you, except there was a tremendous amount of feedback. So we'll give you an opportunity to see if you can fix that. I'll go on mute if you're prepared to. Okay. Okay, you know what? Can you unmute yourself? I think we lost the Maria Jackson feed, and I'm not sure if you're.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'll stay talking. I'm sorry.
No worries.
I apologize about that, Mr. Councilman. My name is Maria Jackson. I have been a resident of DC all my life, and I am in the council. I am a member of the DC Guaranteed Income Coalition. I'm here today to ask the council members two things. I'm asking the council members to design a $13.5 million fund guaranteeing income pilot for the next 3 years. My colleagues in the coalition, please use the fairly process. The setup for the program is benefits, and the numbers are different populations in DC. I'm asking the council members to establish whole harmless funds of $6.75 million to support family members. Those safety net benefits may become reduced as lost because of the 3 years guaranteed income pilot. Some things that it's something I would like for you to know about me, my story. I'm in a wheelchair. I'm a mother of 4. I'm on welfare. I'm divorced. I'm single. I'm a struggling mother. I'm 18. Can I speak with the camera off? My children is 18, 17, 14, and 10. My 18-year-old is involved in travel and family services and CFSA. The CFSA did not help me at all. My financial situation has not been good but I'm struggling. I'm struggling due to SSI and TANF. For my SSI, for my TANF, it was from 600 to 199, and I take care of 3 kids because my 18-year-old wanted to do what he wanted to do, got me in trouble. Ms. Melanie Webb got me out of trouble. Thank you, Ms. Webb. I apologize. I have 3 different kids. I would like to take them out shopping, not buy them shoes monthly. Not be able to, I have to go with them to the grocery store. I have to take a lift to go with them on trips. I do understand my time is up, but my second eldest daughter was 16 when we started this. And I don't want her to take less by herself. The guaranteed income program is important to me to help other women, to give them a chance. To not let them be like me. I struggled, but I told my kids better things. They were able to, they know how to save their money. They know how to go shopping. Even if they're on welfare, they know how to shop properly and appropriately and have food and stuff. When I buy these things, I don't want to have to buy my kids shoes once every month. Like I said, I just want you to understand and repeat that. I want to take my kids on trips. Somewhere they haven't been. I want to be able to buy my kids shoes once, all at the same time. I would like to be able to do that. But that does not happen, Mr. Duffy. That does not happen. This is why this program is so important to me. Because it helps a woman like me. And I'm in public housing also. And once again, you will read my report. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you for hearing me out. I apologize for time. I didn't know.
You don't have to, you certainly don't have to apologize for that. And frankly, we still appreciate you taking the time to provide your testimony.
I didn't know it was going to affect you like that.
Well, you know, I appreciate that. And it's a very personal story. We don't often get those types of personal stories by people who are impacted by the programs that folks are advocating for. So I think it obviously helps me as chair of the committee, my staff, to hear your story, and for anybody else who's wondering how we should be allocating resources to the district. Your story is exactly the type of thing that we want to be part of our record. And frankly, your testimony last year, that of Mr. Webb's and others, that compelled us to do the guaranteed income program that we put in the budget last year. And so we obviously are seeing the program continue. We know that the program that Ms. Webb described and that has been implemented previously had some very positive outcomes. And we saw some reports and data around that. So it's very encouraging. I think what you shared, Ms. Jackson, are things that so many families take for granted. Just be able to.
Excuse me, I apologize for interrupting you. Kids on stage and they still have a case open against me, and they don't prove really anything. They're supposed to help me get a better place. They're not helping me at all. You understand? You understand what I'm saying?
I definitely hear what you're saying. You know, I think understanding what you're going through is something totally different. And I think I appreciate your sharing the insights and trying to help me, my staff, and others understand what you are experiencing and how the government can best again, I want to thank you for taking the time to provide the testimony, and certainly it helps to inform what we're doing here, just as it has in the past. And so we look forward to engaging you beyond the day about some of the things we'd like to be able to do. In the community. So I'm going to turn next to Michelle. Michelle Hammond, I think I see.
Good morning.
Good morning. And thanks
Good
for being.
morning, Councilman Duffy. And I will thank you for allowing me to share my testimony, my life experience that I've been experiencing. Again, my name is Michelle Hammond. I was born and raised here in Washington, D.C. and attended D.C. public school. I'm also a member of Guaranteed Income Coalition. The coalition has its mission to build a permanent guaranteed income program in Washington, D.C. while preserving existing social insurance safety net programs. I would like to share some of my story with you. I'm a senior now and proud to be among those who are committed to the Washington, D.C. community. The COVID pandemic has created unexpected challenges for me and others in my age bracket in the District of Columbia. The pandemic closed restaurants and stores and kept us from seeing friends and family. I'm experiencing mental stress and physical disability. During my working career, I always worked in the food service industry. I'm no longer qualified because of my disability. Even though I have applied for several times for disability coverage, I have been denied. I'm currently on Medicaid and receiving food stamps. I hope that this committee will see the need to support district residents like myself affected by the COVID pandemic. I'm sharing my story to help you understand why guaranteed income is important and why more programs needed to be funded. A guaranteed income program can help people who are in situations such as mine. I also hope that you will make sure that people like me who receive medical and food stamps and other public benefits will not those benefits won't be reduced and taken away because they receive funds from a guaranteed income program. Help me and others like me. And I want to thank you in this difficult time that we are struggling in.
And thank you so much for your testimony. We really appreciate it. Next
Thank
is
you.
Tanika Meacham.
Good morning. Hello, my name is Tanika McEachin. I have been a resident of Washington, D.C. for my whole life, and I'm a member of the D.C. Guaranteed Income Coalition. The coalition has its mission, among others, to build a permanent guaranteed income program in Washington, D.C. while preserving existing social insurance and safety net programs. Some things I would like you to know about me and my story are that I'm a single mother of 3 children, ages 12, 9, and 8. My oldest child has special needs, and I am currently unemployed and receive TANF benefits. The district's FY23 budget should support that many district residents impacted by the COVID pandemic. Importantly, the district's FY2023 budget should also demonstrate its commitment to communities of colors disproportionately harmed by policies and practices that place their families at economic risk. I'm asking the council to designate $13.5 million to fund guaranteed income pilots for fiscal years 2023 through 2025. The funding will provide a minimum of $500 per person to 750 participating families for 3 years. I'm also asking that guaranteed income program be transparent by selecting 5 to 10 pilot programs serving populations who face varied social and economic challenges. The outcome from these pilots will help us understand which approaches work best and ensure that successful outcomes can be replicated. This is important to me because it's often harder for women and women of color to find good jobs. A lot of us are in poverty, and it's important to have these benefits to support our families. It is important to note that guaranteed income programs may reduce or cause a complete loss of family safety net benefits, also known as the benefit cliff. I'm asking the council to waive or by statute exempt guaranteed income pilot income from benefits like SNAP, TANF, Medicaid, and housing subsidies. These benefits support my family by giving us wiggle room to pay for things other than bills. These benefits will also help us to have fun. Poor people deserve to have fun too. Simple recreational activities with your children are important for them. Finally, I'm asking the council to establish a whole harmless fund of $6.75 million to support families whose safety net benefits may have been reduced or lost because of the 3-year guaranteed income pilot. The whole homeless fund would reimburse families and sustain financial stability and family income. This fund is important to me because if the city reduces your overall benefits because of an addition of one type of benefit, it's really setting you back to square one. Thank you for your time.
And thank you for your testimony. Next is Datisha McEachin. Is Datisha McEachin with us this morning?
She's not able to be here, Council.
Okay, we'll turn next to Veronica Tucker.
And she's ill today. I'm so sorry, sir.
No worries at all. No worries at all. I'd just like to give everybody an opportunity. I'm not sure if they're there or not. Wilma Jones.
Good morning, Councilman. Thank you for your time to hear me this morning. I too am a member of this DC Guarantee for All Income Coalition, and I am Wilma Jones. My children are adults. My youngest son is 25 years old. His special needs restrict him to mental ability of about a 10-year-old child. My rent increases as my income rises, so no income increase is realized to help improve my budget. I am both mom and dad to my 4 adult children, working full-time since 1973 through 2013 in the District of Columbia until my son's health declined. No pension yet for me, who worked at DC educational institutions where I was employed. This is important to me because I believe with supports and services through Income for All, DC residents will realize a value of self-budgeting and see thriving and surviving in a more effective, well-being, beneficial way to help self and family and others, which will help us not to be such a financial hindrance in society. These benefits support my family now, Medicaid and Medicare for my son, who has intellectual and developmental disabilities and a kidney transplant. Also, I am in need of Medicaid insurance, which was taken away from me when I turned 65 years old because I was judged not poor enough to need it. As a senior citizen over 67 years old, however, again, I emphasize Medicaid is not granted to me because my very low income status is not poverty-stricken low enough, and my copay based on Medicare insurance is as high as my doctor's fee, or just about as high as my doctor's fee, and I really cannot afford it. The whole harmless fund is important to me because my family and other families will be able to realize the gain of income and keep our supports and service without being penalized with immediate rent increases or decreases in our other support and services that most families need to survive, like rent subsidy programs, SNAP program, TANF programs. And I support the government agencies that do have these programs that are successfully working now throughout the United States of America. Thank you for your time and support. Please honor this bill and vote for DC Guarantee for All. Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you for your testimony this morning. We appreciate it. Returning next to James Williams.
Yes, how you doing?
I'm doing well. You getting your testimony, thanks.
Yes, I'm talking about the guaranteed income. And
Yep.
I'm talking about needing help because in November 2020, I went to the hospital and I had they told me I had pains in my left shoulder and my left arm, and they told me I had to need emergency surgery. They did the emergency surgery on December the 3rd. In my neck, they removed some bones and put screws and bolts. I came home about a week after. Then a week later, I was back in. They said I needed another emergency surgery. And then I stayed in the hospital until February. I came home and then I still had complications. They did another emergency surgery on me on November the 8th of 2021 on my lower back. I had screws and bolts, and I filed for disability in 2020. They denied me in 2021, and I'm still fighting. I have no income. I've been surviving on just friends and family. So we need that guaranteed income to come along. I'm still having complications now. They saying it's my hip. I need another surgery, and disability is not doing anything. My doctor's signing the papers off, and I'm still not getting any help. I've been living since 2020 on friends and family, and it's taking a stress on them. I'm 56 years old, and right now I feel I can't work because I can't barely walk, stand up. And it's like nobody's doing anything. I keep going to disability. I go down there every week. I have to wear a special device around my stomach and my back now to stabilize my bones because they can grow. They can put screws in back. I have screws and screws and bolts from the top of my neck down to the bottom of my back. And no one's doing anything. If the guaranteed income, at least I know I can get something, I'm just out here surviving. I have Medicaid from the state. I was a resident of DC. All my life, I done worked in DC. And it's just, I wish that the government start looking at people that really need help.
Well, I appreciate your testimony, and obviously government should be looking at people who really need help, and frankly should be looking at those people first. So again, I really appreciate you sharing your story and helping us to see this light as we think about the budget that we have before us as a council. So we'll turn next to Woodner. Thank you for being here this morning. You can give your testimony.
Thank you.
You have to unmute yourself. Can you unmute him?
Who are you calling? I'm sorry, I didn't get it.
This is on witness Yemi Woodner.
Oh, okay. And my apologies to you, sir. First of all, it's a pleasure to have you and to let you know our problems and our progresses. So I consider myself like a human rights activist before I even knew about activism, because shelter, food, and things like that should be a given for any human being. So I am a lifelong Washingtonian, and I also worked in hospitality all my life. So because of the current situation in Washington and the gentrification, I'm not sure how long I'm going to be living here. And this city I love, and I would like to remain in the city. because I was here when it was nothing, and when it comes glamorous, I shouldn't be leaving. So I want you please help me stay in DC. Not only me, millions of other low-income people would like to remain in DC. So help us stay in DC, number one. Number two, because of the pandemic, we all are suffering from lack of income, mental and physical illnesses, depression, and mainly this kind of situations are manifesting themselves in low-income people. So this they need to look at, because they have millions and millions of dollars to spend on all kinds of places, 200 million here and 800 million there for Ukraine. I mean, that's all good, but they should be paying more attention to their hardworking people in their own nation. And this nation is the richest nation on the planet, and people shouldn't be begging for food or shelter or medical care, because that is a human rights given situation. So saying that, the guaranteed income, like everybody was mentioning earlier, is a helpful tool to facilitate life and to make life a little bit easier. And also knowing an income coming your way on a monthly basis give you some kind of psychological support. And most of all, Melody's program should stand out from all the organizations that exist today, because women are the pillar of society. If women do not raise responsible kids, society will be more of a mess. So women should be empowered, especially underprivileged women, colored women, minority women in general, should be helped up, because we're losing our kids as the day goes by. And we shouldn't be worrying about our kids, to feed our kids or to clothe our kids, because that's a God-given thing. We're not asking to drive a Mercedes-Benz, you know? We're just asking for a basic human rights issue that should be honored. So I admire and support 100% Melody, and the guaranteed income is a very, very necessary tool, and it should be, I mean, for everyone. It should continue for the duration, because right now the system is failing a lot of hardworking people. Thank you for your time, and we need more people like you, more politicians like you, and I will definitely vote for you again. You're magnificent. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And I appreciate your testimony. We're going to turn back to our final witness for this panel, who is Howard Templeton, or Templeman.
Good morning, Councilman McDuffie. My name is Howard Templeman. I'm a lifelong resident of Washington, D.C. I live in Ward 6. When the pandemic hit March 20th, March 2020, it hit me on the blind side. I had no way of seeing it coming. Because of the $600 that the federal government gave to go along with my unemployment, I was able to stay afloat. But even with that, because of issues with Maryland, I had to go 8 weeks without unemployment before I was able to be reinstated. And it was stressful, very stressful, you know, because bills don't get sick. They stay healthy. They keep coming. They don't care if you got COVID-19. They don't care if you're out of work. You know, and right to this day, because of the nature of work I do, working as a banquet waiter / bartender, work is still extremely slow at the House of Representatives, because they're not letting visitors in because of the insurrection. So therefore, work in my field is extremely slow. These events have led me to support a universal basic income or guaranteed income program. I am asking the council to designate $13.5 million to fund guaranteed income pilots for fiscal year 2023 to 2025. The funding will provide a minimum of $500 per month to 750 participating families for 3 years. Finally, I am asking the council to establish a whole harmless fund of $6.75 million to support families whose safety net benefits may have been reduced or lost because of the 3-year guaranteed income pilot. Because it don't make sense to lose benefits you already have because you're getting a few extra dollars. The whole harmless fund will keep that from happening. I'd like to thank you for your time.
And I thank you for your testimony, Mr. Templeman. And I want to thank each of the witnesses on this panel, especially those who shared their personal stories and are advocating for more support. I appreciate that. And I'm going to take a recess at this point. We're going to recess until 12 p.m. We're going to recess till noon. And we'll come back and we'll hear testimony for the other agencies in the community. So again, thank all the witnesses who provided testimony here this morning, and we will reconvene at noon.